Um, the next speaker again needs absolutely no introduction to anybody, either in India or abroad. Again, a very, very dear friend. Might I even dare say a collaborator and a conspirator. But more than anything else, apart from her stellar achievements in the field of music, she's again been somebody who's always never been afraid to speak her mind, especially when things seem to be very dictatorial and normative in this country. She's got opinions on a wide range of subjects. Very specific to this conclave, she has been part of the steering committee of the National Curriculum Framework in 2005. And therefore has been very much a part of the thinking process behind how arts in education, arts education, and arts as education needs to be thought about. So without further ado, it gives me the greatest pleasure and honor to invite my dear, dear, dear Shubhaji, Srimati Shubha Mudgal, is an in-conversation session. Namaskar, Shubhaji.
Namaste, and thank you for including me in this absolutely wonderful discussion.
So Shubhaji, I'll go straight ahead into this. So there's been a diversity of views from the morning, and what was interesting to me is that we've been having passionate advocacy for the arts from the science people. So
Yes.
we had the STEM people and the economics people all say yes, 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 yes. And then we have a whole bunch of compliances, which, as Sanjana pointed out, which can be potentially quite confusing for the person who's actually on the ground. What we would say are frontline warriors who are the teachers, right? Ultimately, it's the buck is stopping there, right? And in between, there are people like us who are artists who are also trying to help ease this process, right? So there's an ecosystem that's been built up. So I'm going to just ask you, because you mean a lot to all of us. What is your mood like listening to all of this? Where do you where do you find yourself situated in all of this?
Well, I'm happy that the conversation has started. I'm happy that the idea of including arts in mainstream education and making it available for everybody has been restarted, although it has been happening for a while, but no concrete steps were taken for a long time. So I'm happy that the conversation has started. At the same time, I'm a little concerned that how is it all going to be implemented? Because
Right.
in a sense, it's a great idea that that to include arts in several ways has been almost prescribed now in the new NEP. But at the same time, how is that implementation going to happen? And how are various issues that have been of great importance, at least to many of us, and for a long time? One is the issue of actually teaching the arts in mainstream school education,
Right.
so including the arts. And the other is to integrate arts into the entire schooling system. So to me, these two are both need to be looked at with very, very careful lenses. When we say arts, what do we mean? By and large, whenever we've discussed arts education, the people who have been involved in helping design policy have largely been people who come from the background of classical music, and
Right.
I know that I'm a part of that as well. But what about the arts in general? What about the enormous diversity of the arts? Have we bothered to also look at other arts? Because in India, when you say arts education, what kind of arts education? So that concern, are we really looking at the unique diversity of India when we talk about how we will teach the arts? We cannot have, and I've said that perhaps in my position paper, which I made that remark, that are we going to try and create a nation full of people who are singing Malkons and Darbari,
Right.
or
Right.
are we, yeah, or dance Bharatanatyam or Odissi or any other classical art? What about the other many, many arts that I, as a student of music, and I've been studying music for decades, I remain ignorant about them? So, where are we going to include all of that? Then I'm concerned about another thing, that although we made it compulsory to include arts in our school system now in the new policy, at the same time, we declare that arts are non essential. I mean, the general, I mean, this is crazy. So, how can you? I mean, it's like the left hand doesn't know what the hand is doing. So when we say that arts are essential in the schooling system, we cannot say that no, arts are non-essential. Let's discuss them at a later stage. So I think the essentiality of the arts, and the essentiality of the arts in their enormous, humongous diversity in India, must be kept in mind when plans are being made to implement this very welcome policy. The other is that how do we integrate arts into the teaching of other subjects as well? I think merely feeling happy that we've asked, let's say, children to draw something or color something, certainly it's a good activity. I'm not saying that, I'm not criticizing it, but I'm saying then we need to plan the syllabus and the curriculum with a completely different, we need to relook at it. How are we going to tell the child who's learning music that mathematics is also a part of your music training, or
Exactly.
history is also a part of your music training? And how are we going to tell the student, who is the child who is learning history, that look, you can need not learn history only by looking at your lesson and answering questions. You can actually learn it through music as well, or through
By the
dance as
way,
well.
I'm going
Yeah.
to interject right there. I remember in DPS Varanasi, and I was there at your invitation. There was a song that you had created on Jhansi Wali Rani. I remember this very, very well, and the children sang it.
Yes.
And I know it's not a concert, but can you just sing us one line of that? Because I want this example to be known, because you made
I'll
that point.
I'll give you another example. You know, we talk about, let's say we teach about the struggle for independence, for India's
Right.
independence.
Right.
Across the country, there were people poets who were writing poetry to encourage people to follow in the footsteps of great leaders, like Mahatma Gandhi, for example. So there was a poet called Gauri Dutt Pandey from Uttarakhand, who everybody would refer to as Gorda. And Anish and I taught this at a school in Varanasi. You can't imagine how soon the children learnt it, and also the context. So
Right.
it was saying follow Gandhi, and it said it took the template of a folk song from the Braj Mathura region, called Rasya, and this was the song. गांधी के भगत बनो रसिया, गांधी के गांधी के भगत बनो रसिया, गांधी के. Now this tune is known to many people and with other text, but using this template, we have actually brought together folk music, poetry, history, many other aspects that we would like to educate our children. It talks about untouchability, the problem of untouchability, the problem of caste, the problem of inequality, and all of this is addressed in a single song. So I think we need to look at both these areas of how we will teach the arts and how we will integrate the arts in a manner that really also considers the amazing diversity of India.
No, I think it's an excellent point, Shubhaji, and it also addresses, I think, geographic concerns, because I know from the south, and we largely deal with teachers in the south. A large portion of South Indian cultural art forms, and not just the classical, but we're talking about traditional art forms, have been completely ignored, completely sidestepped, and it's often very confounding results you get in the classroom when you're trying to, suddenly force fit a thumri or a
Yes.
or a chote kayal into a South Indian classroom, because there's absolutely no context to them as to where it's coming from. And I think the point is very well made. I'll only ask another question to you. And this I'm asking more as a friend than in education or anything like that. There is a concern, and I think there's a concern that many of us are voicing, that we're trying to go towards a unified idea of culture, you know and this is what culture means. And I know this is a slightly risky question also, but I think it needs to be addressed, and if we don't address it, who's going to do it? So I think, there needs to be this appreciation of maybe, and I think a lot of words like inclusivity, diversity, all these things have started just becoming buzzwords. It's like putting a hashtag on a tweet or something like that. But it's where do we actually see the real implications of these things? How do you think? What is your foretelling of this? Because I think we're living in a very, very transitional phase where there's a unified idea of ethics, culture, and code of behavior that we're supposed to subscribe to. Um, where do you
I
think where do you think we're headed?
I think it would be a great idea, I mean, since we are talking about educating the education system and about teaching children, I think it would be such a great idea to also look at having a umbrella policy, but also looking at regional variants, which would mean that the local, let's say, the richness of
Stakeholders.
the artistic richness of each part of India could be considered. And also, we always talk of exchange programs, let's say, between India and another country. How about exchange programs between
Within India.
states? Why would somebody who is from the north not want to learn about the arts and culture of Eastern India or of Southern India? So I think it's important to look at exchange programs and develop exchange programs which are not merely about spending a little bit of time, but actually exchanging material that we are resource material that we use with each other. Which brings me, can I make this one point, because I might not have the time, that when you say your when you bring to when you declare a new education policy of the kind that has been declared, what about resource material for all of this? Where are we going to find? Just think about it. We've all been teaching for so long now. We've all been involved in trying to create various modules for education. Are there toys, games, easily accessible books, graphic books, cartoon books, everything? Are there anything related to the arts that is easily accessible?
Right.
So I can't think of a single jigsaw puzzle, for example, that takes into consideration the arts in India and perhaps introduces children to various aspects of arts education. I can't think, and these need to be developed. They need to be priced in a manner that makes them accessible for everybody. Also, I need to make this point also, that we need, somewhere in our arts education, what are we offering our children? The child today is performing repertoire that was never meant for children.
Classroom. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not saying, look, I'm not advocating that we come up with a whole data bank of nursery rhymes alone. But what about songs that are specific for children? What do our gifted children do? They go to a reality show and they sing a song which was sung by a
Never
movie
meant to say.
star.
Yeah.
I am not at for 1 minute saying that the song is bad, that the movie star doesn't set a good example. I'm just saying, where are all those children's songs? Just the Aate Baate Dahi Chatake kind of songs that we learned when we were really little children. And we need to develop more of these, because our children are not the same that we, in our generation, for example. So I think helping, I think we need to nurture our children in a manner that helps them create their own songs, or songs that they identify with. We can't force down the nursery rhymes we learnt. We can't coochie coo. And at the
Right.
same time, we need to develop. We can't have the same things that are being performed and presented by adults. We can't have
Yeah.
them transposed for children.
I think these are very well made points. And I think the important distinction is that, of course, in pockets, there are resources available
Yes.
for these things, but it needs to be, I think the point you made was access. And I think that's a very, very critical point. It needs to be freely available to everybody, almost like a central, it's what you would call open source. It should
Yes.
be open source. It should be freely downloadable, for example.
Yes.
So I think that's a point well made. I'll open it up to one or two questions from, I know there are more than 800 school heads logged in right now. So I will open it up to one or two questions. I know everybody wants to ask you something, but I know the team is working hard to pick one or two questions which will be specific to the discussion we are having. Um, but Shubhaji, I think if I were to summarize, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but you've made two. I think both Sanjana and you have spoken very complimentary points, and I think I wanted us to have this perspective as well. So we did hear the higher education officials at the beginning talking about why arts are obviously, I mean, it's obviated that there's no gainsaying that it is absolutely necessary in education in from kindergarten. And then we were listening to the implementation teams, which are also, I think they are both having to grapple with the challenge and still make sense of it. And so in a way, they're also working very hard through it to try and make sense, because when you have a policy, it behooves the implementers. And so I think they're in the process of trying to simplify it and saying, okay, just put it down into so one of the things I always look at with compassion is to say, okay, they also have a very difficult job, to try and make sense of this madness and see where we go with it. And then we've had Sanjana and you talk about the fact that let's get a little real. I think there's nothing to teach children. I think we have to listen to children. And I think we need to expose them to this incredible richness that we already have. You just open that Pandora's box, or rather open that Aladdin's cave of magic treasures, which is our arts, and they will find what they need to find. I don't think we need to, filter. Each child will find what they want. I hope I've got the summary right.
Yes, yes, absolutely. You're right. And also that has, of course, been stressed, that the performative aspect need not be what is
It's the
introduced
only
in.
thing, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. But the understanding of concepts and the idea of really reveling in the arts is a very important one, which needs to be encouraged and re-encouraged.
Okay, so somebody says Abke Saman can be used to teach rain. I'm going to suggest to Ujjaini Roy that you should do it and send us a video of it, and I think we'll be thrilled.
Yes, why not? Yes.
Okay, is there any other question that is pertinent to what we were having? I'm asking my team. Is it not possible for the CBC to create a pool of teachers to create? Absolutely, I think, Shubhaji, your response to that. Is it not possible to create a pool of teachers to do this? I think we would say a pool of resources. Let's not just make it teachers. Right?
Yes, I think because a lot of people work in isolation, independently, and it would be good to have to know what people are working on. Firstly, to avoid repeating the same thing. I mean, if somebody is already working on, let's say, a certain kind of books for children, what is the point in our repeating the same exercise? But I think yet not just me, but there must be so many people who are concerned about how arts can be integrated into the school teaching. I think perhaps it would have been nice to have invited suggestions. And of course, I realize that all suggestions cannot be integrated, but still, I think it would be good to have stakeholders. We are all stakeholders in this wonderful journey of discovering about the arts. So it would have been nice to have been able to send in our suggestions. And I think it can still be done.
I think the whole point of opening up these conversations is exactly that. And I'm very grateful to everybody who agreed to be part of it for that reason, because one is, of course, the investment in time, but I think everybody is feeling committed. And some people committed at an implementation level, and a lot of us in terms of our spirit towards this thing. I think we can have one more question. And please, I'm suggesting to the team, please avoid questions which are about asking Shubhaji to sing. That is for a different occasion where they will have to pay tickets. Insist on this. Right. So if there's any other questions specific to this, but if not, I'm going to ask my last question and sort of end with this. There is one. There are two views in AIL. One is to encourage the exploration of art for the sake of art. The second view is to integrate it with learning. Which do you think should be explored first? Art for art or art integrated?
Well, I think since there is a system to be followed, I think I would say that art integrated would be what we need to look at and work on. But at the same time, this question has also prompted another thought in my mind, that in a country like India, we do not have programs for gifted children, not
Yeah.
only in the arts, but even otherwise. So I think the idea here, we are discussing a entire mass of children, but there are also gifted children, and there how we teach them the other,
Very different.
yes, disciplines also needs to be looked at in an education policy. Can we give them the same curriculum and the same syllabi that we give to all our children, or do we create a special learning module for them? I don't have answers, but I think it's something that we need to look at very seriously.
Shubhaji, you have always been one, and you continue to be an absolutely wonderful inspiration to us all. And by saying that, I don't want to push you away to that stature that we give to these gods sitting on clouds. You are very much a part of the, the working collective, I would like to say. But I want to thank you personally and on behalf of the Rhapsody team and Macmillan team for your time today. I know how busy you are, and to share these insights, because I think, as Sanjana put it very well, I think the important thing is conversation.
Absolutely, and thank you for including me. It's and thank you for your kind words. I've learned a lot from many of the panelists who were speaking before me, and it's been quite wonderful. Thank you for arranging this.
Not at all, Shubhaji. I also want to point out to people watching that Shubhaji has and Anishji have created some really wonderful resources for children. We were lucky enough to receive some copies a few days ago. Shubhaji, the good news for you is that we're going to use them,
Oh, wonderful.
and we will talk offline on that. But I think, judging from this conversation, I think if people like Shubhaji and Anishji, my team, all of us would come together and start pooling these things together, a lot could be achieved. But thank you, Shubhaji, and have a wonderful weekend ahead of you. Thank you.
Many thanks.